what I have decided to do, we were reading Habakkuk as our second portion of the readings. So the book is 3 chapters, and I did my exhortation on chapter 1, and this evening I want us to read chapter 3, and we discuss a few verses or extract a few thoughts from the last book of Habakkuk. So I will start by reading the verses, and then we'll go into the discussion. So, but before I do that, we see that the construct of the book is looking at, it starts with Habakkuk complaining to God. And this is what I exhorted. And then in that same chapter, God answers Habakkuk. He gives a few, about seven verses where God answers. After God answered, Habakkuk complains for the second time. That's where chapter 1 ends. Then in chapter 2, God decided to give a long answer now, which is more detailed. The whole of chapter 2 is God's answers to the second complaint and the first. Then chapter 3 is now after the response of God to the complaints. Habakkuk then acknowledges God through prayer. Now I'm going to read that prayer, and that's where we're going to extract a few thoughts. A prayer of Habakkuk, the prophet, on Shigem. Lord, I've heard your fame. I stand in awe of the deeds, Lord. Repeat them in our day, in our time, make them known. In wrath, remember mercy. God came from Taman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. His glory covered the heavens, and his praise filled the earth. His splendor was like the sunrise. Rays flashed from his hand, where his power was hidden. Plague went before him, pestilence followed his steps. He stood and shook the earth. He looked and made the nations tremble. The ancient mountains crumbled, and the age-old hills collapsed. But he marches on forever. I saw the tents of Cushan in distress, the dwellings of Midan in anguish. Were you angry with the rivers, Lord? Was your wrath against the streams? Did you rage against the sea when you rode your horses and your chariots to victory? You uncovered your bow. You called for many arrows. You split the earth with rivers. The mountains saw you and reaped. Torrents of water swept by. The deep roared and lifted its waves on high. Sun and moon stood still in the heavens at the glint of your flying arrows, at the lightning of your flashing spear. In wrath, you strode through the earth, in the anger, you threshed the nations. You came out to deliver your people, to save your anointed one. You crushed the leader of the land of the wickedness. You stripped him from head to foot. With his own spear, you pierced his head when his warriors stormed out to scatter us, gloating as though about to devour the wretched who were in hiding. You trampled the sea with your horses, churning the great waters. I heard, and my heart pounded. My lips quivered at the sound. Decay crept in my bones, and my legs trembled. Yes, I will wait patiently for the day of calamity to come on the nation invading us. Though the fig tree does not bud and there are no grapes on the vines, through the olive crops fails, and the fields produce no food. Though there are no sheep in the sheepfold and no cattle in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God, my favor, my Savior. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of the deer. He enables me to tread on the heights. For the director of music on my stringed instrument. So now, this is Habakkuk's prayer. So you can hear the words of Habakkuk. Chapter 1, it's talking about complain, short answer, and then complain. And in chapter 2, we read in verse 1. Chapter 3, chapter 2 in verse 1. After he had complained for the second time, he then says, this is Habakkuk the prophet, I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me and what answer I am to give to his complaint. Now, if we look at the New American Standard, the very same verse, it says, I will stand at my guard post and station myself on the watchtower, and I will keep watch to see what he will say to me and how I may reply when I am reprimanded. So we see here, Habakkuk is full aware of what is happening. He knows he has complained. I don't know whether he had a guilty conscience, but the last portion is say, and how I may reply when I am reprimanded. He knew God was going to reprimand him. Now, the English Standard Bible, it gives us on the same verse, chapter 2, verse 1, I will stand my watch and set myself on the rampart and watch to see what he will say to me and what I will answer when I am corrected. So this will be open for discussion because upfront, he is saying when I am corrected. So it's like he knew that I am wrong, or if we look at it the other way, we will say he always knows that God knows what he is doing. In the New King James Version, it reads, I will take my stand at my watch post and stand myself on the tower and look out to see what he will say to me, this is God, and what I will answer concerning my complaint. So again, it's talking about the same thing. But the fascinating thing is Habakkuk knows that um, I am wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway. And this is my opinion. So why are we looking at Habakkuk? Why is there like, do I have a lot of interest? Whilst it gives lessons, I think it also confirms that the message is related to present day. It is talking to the frame of my mind, and maybe to many, I assume and hope. This is why this book or the lessons have become of interest. Because the questions that Habakkuk was asking are very much relevant to what we are seeing on a daily basis. And then with that, it just confirms the authenticity of the Bible. Now, chapter 2, we see a long answer from God, longer than the one that was given in chapter 1. In chapter 1, there are a few verses that were given. Now, in chapter 2, the whole chapter, which is about 20 verses, God was instructing or answering Habakkuk in a detailed manner and very much with vigor and emphasis. Now, there is verses that then supports. Then the Lord answered me and said, write down the vision and inscribe it clearly on tablets, so that who reads it may run. This is when God started his answers in chapter 2, the Lord's answer. Then the Lord replied, write down the revelation, write down what I'm telling you, and make it plain on tablets, so that a herald may run with it. So a herald is a messenger. So that whatever I am telling you now, you need to take it out. You need to make sure that everybody knows, so that my name will be glorified, so that people may know that I'm not just watching and not doing anything. Now take this message and preach it and let everybody know that I am the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob. So then we jump on to chapter 3. We are going to look at, there is 3 portions. The first portion is talking about the power of God. And then the second portion, the first portion is talking about the praises of God. And the second portion is talking about the power of God. And the third portion is talking about the plan of God. So the praise of God, like we read now, it's the first 3 verses. Even though the whole chapter is praising, but there was also emphasis on saying the God of the heavens and the one who filled the earth. And we read the same in chapter 1. Then verses 4 to 7, it's talking about the power of God. It talks about his splendor. It talks about he shook the earth. It talks about his anger with the rivers. And then the last portion is talking about the end, which is the plan. Now, I decided to actually then take a different approach as far as this class is concerned. That's why I explained on the construct of the book first, because first is talking about the complaint, and then there is an answer. Then the second complaint, and then there is an argument. Now, what I want us to do now is to take ourselves in the shoes of Habakkuk. And I want us to go through a few questions. I want to make it interactive. I think as brethren or as brothers and sisters, we have had situations where we have asked God, where we were not happy with something, and we have had uncertainty in our minds, or we have had situations where we prayed for something, and something in those the prayers were answered, or it was not answered. I want us to take it from there as like discussion questions. So the first question is, how do you respond to God's answers? Or how did you respond to God's answers? I'm sure we all have had these moments. So it's a question. I'm giving it to the class. We can discuss. Well, if there is any, that is.
I just want to make sure I understand your question, right? Are you saying if we prayed and God answered our prayers, how did we respond then?
Yes.
Irrespective, obviously, of what the answer was. Okay.
Yes. Irrespective of what the answer was, and we will discuss later on irrespective of what the answer was, because sometimes we are answered, sometimes we are not. I don't know whether I should say we are not, but no is an answer as well. But to us, no is not an answer.
Okay, I'll just mention something briefly. Way back, Leon and I, with the birth of Llewellyn, we were praying for God to help us, and then the answer that was given by the decision the doctor took was very upsetting to me and Leona. But then later we learned the lesson, much to our shame, that a day later we saw that worked the circumstances to be exactly actually what we wanted, because the doctor was actually working according to the plan that we wanted to happen, although it didn't look like it to us. So sometimes I feel in that case we answered wrong because we trusted God, but then when we got an answer, we were still complaining about it. Instead of saying, okay, this is the answer I got, it's not the one I want, so first of all, I'm not going to complain. I thank God for whatever answer, and then although I can't understand it, say maybe later, but just keep trusting in God. That's just one example.
Exactly. And is there any other person that would want to comment? Okay, so my you actually answered the second question that I was going to ask, that what have we learned from our responses? Because like you said, when you wanted a certain answer and it wasn't given to you the way you expected it, even though it was the right answer, you had prayed about it, you had prepared for it, and you were later proven wrong, actually. So I think in situations like those, the learnings that we can take is to actually fully trust in God, because he knows what's happening. We are reactive in most of our actions. So, and I know there might be other people, brethren, that have had or experienced different situations. And you can feel free to jump in. But then the next question will be, how can we normalize this principle in our lives? Now, if I give an example from what you said, Brother Lucas, how, if you encounter another situation in future, how would you take it? Or how would you, like, how can we make it like a normal day-to-day principle that we apply in our lives, that whatever situations, whatever God gives us, we need to accept, knowing that God is in control? Is that possible? If yes, how? What would you say? What advice would you give to say, in order for us to achieve this, this is how we need to approach it? Anyone?
It's Diesel. I'll just jump in. Lately, I've been praying a lot for God just to show me which direction to take, especially now with the birth of the boys. And so often, like, I'll pray about it and say that it's all in God's hands, and I'm trusting He's sending me to the right places. And there's been so many times where I've been to like 4 different doctors, and then I start thinking to myself, like, maybe I should just take back control. But I think what my answer basically would be is, like, in what I'm learning now, is that once I've prayed about it, I need to start, I need to trust that God is in control, and I need to stop being anxious about it or worrying about it, and actually just, what I'm trying to do now is meditate and read more just of the Bible verses where it shows that God has been there before for the people, like for for the believers and the people who are his children. He always comes through for them, even though the answer might not be what you're looking for. But I need to trust it till the very end, because I've put it in His hands. So maybe just not to try and take control of a situation again once you've put it to prayer, is something that I'm working on at the moment. And I'm finding getting those words of encouragement of Bible verses has been a big help.
No, definitely, because it's a challenge that we actually all facing. It's been long since we were baptized, and we read all the time, but we seem not to learn, or maybe we struggle to learn. The human element always plays its part. It surpasses the God element, if I may, for lack of maybe better explanation, because to your point, Liesl, we know that there is nothing much we can do on our own. Whether we worry, you go to 5 doctors, it's not going to really change the outcome that God has like stipulated. So we know where the source of our answers is, but always we do run our own way. So, okay, now the next question, and the reason why I'm asking these questions is to give us affirmation in some of the behaviors or the direction we take in certain instances, like to Lizzie's point, to Lucas' point, these are 2 different scenarios, and we actually read that we heard from Lucas that he wasn't very happy, he was bitter, but he later realized there was no need for us to be bitter. So the lesson that we can take from there is we should accept those answers, and we should know that God is in control because he knows the beginning and the end. So the next question, how would you describe Habakkuk's attitude in his response? Is it something that you can match? Anyone? Okay, so Habakkuk realized that he made a mistake. He was wrong, and he was waiting to be reprimanded. And it's human nature. So his attitude towards at the end when he gives that prayer is a very good attitude, because then after realizing, he then humbled himself and gave praise to God. Now, I will ask another one. What is the type of prayer Habakkuk is praying here? Is it confession? Is it intercession? Is it praise? Is it thanksgiving? These are not tricky questions. I'm just asking so that if we share our thoughts, it will help us to then understand that we go through the same challenges, and this is how we need to respond to them. It could be a prayer for everything, because he thanked God for taking care of him. There was praise of God. There was confession that I realized that I was wrong. Now, if we continue, there's other verses that can actually help us to work through or to pull through situations similar to Habakkuk's one. Psalm 50, verse 15. Call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you and you will honor me. Matthew 13, verse 33. Be on your guard and stay alert, for you do not know when the appointed time will come. Ephesians 6, verse 18. Pray in the Spirit at all times, with every kind of prayer and petition. To this end, stay alert with all perseverance in your prayers. So, if we read these verses, they will then they can help us to understand better. But over and above, Proverbs 1 verse 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. So, moving along, what are the educational points we can extract from chapter 3 of Habakkuk? Habakkuk responds to God's answers by praying. So then, it's something that we actually need to practice. In chapters 1 and 2 of the book of Habakkuk, it is focused on uncertainty because we see Habakkuk asking questions. And some of these questions we do ask them a lot of times. We ask questions, and when they are answered, sometimes we do forget that we have been answered and there is no acknowledgement. So uncertainty or doubt is not very good. And this is what had crept on Habakkuk, and he was asking questions because there was an element of doubt. What created this doubt? The reason was his daily encounters. They did not make sense. He could not understand what was happening around him and why it continued happening without punishment. Now, if we look at this, it actually resonates with what is happening now. There is a lot of unhappiness with our surroundings, whether it's direct or indirect. And when we see these things, the carnal mind, the human mind, would want instant punishment, forgetting that we also sin. We are all sinners, but we are privileged, or we are sitting at an advantage because we read of the way that, and we encourage each other of the way that we need to live. But now when we see it, continuing without punishment, we would want to, we feel God is being unfair and he should create punishment right away. It also seems there is tolerance and God is not paying attention to the sinfulness. And one could even ask if God is really in control and letting his children do these wrong things. Because we read in Hebrews that what kind of a father who doesn't punish his kids? If it was up to us, maybe we would instill punishment like right away. We will go and destroy. We remember the story of David when he was asked, should I bring men to punish you, or should I come myself? And David answered, you would rather come yourself, Father, because the punishment of men, they will not know when to stop or where to stop. So, coming back to Habakkuk, sometimes we do not understand why God let the so perceived evil people get things their way. And now, to make things worse, if we look at in chapter 1, the first part, he said, God said in his answer, I know what is happening. I've got a plan, and I'm bringing the Babylonians to actually come and punish them. So it doesn't make it easy for Habakkuk, and it doesn't make it easy for us either when situations like these arise. We will say, firstly, God is not punishing people. Secondly, why is he bringing more sinful people to punish less sinful? All of these statements that I've mentioned would create elements of doubt. But there's great lessons that we can pick up from Habakkuk's response. In whatever state of mind you are or we are, you should always, and you can, turn to God in prayer. Like Habakkuk, doubt can lead us to many places. It can create different thoughts. It can actually lead us astray. Uncertainty can lead to ignore everything and let it bubble under the surface while going out in our own business. We will care less. Now, when Brother Lucas gave his answer, and I'm going to ask this question again. You don't need to answer it if you don't feel like. But has anyone else been bitter to God, and why?
Itayi, Brother Michael here. So in my teens, I can remember I was about 15 years old, and we took my dad on our last holiday as a family together before he passed away. And one of his dying wishes was just to go to Durban one last time to go and see the sea. And I remember it very, very clearly still. It was the 20th of June, and something had gone wrong. We started getting pneumonia, and we had to rush him back to Gauteng. So we got him on an emergency flight and hospital transfer from the airport directly into the Arvip Hospital. And I can remember I was walking on the beach that morning, and I can remember that I was very angry and I was arguing loudly with God, and I was bitter that morning. And it took me quite a while. It took me about 2 years before I actually started looking for God again after that. But yes, I once in my life very foolishly was bitter at God.
Yeah. And obviously now with, it was foolish of you because of what you know now. Is that correct?
Yeah, hindsight.
That time you were young.
Yeah, I was young. I was not understanding, and yeah, as the wise man says, hindsight is 20/20. So it was foolish of me back then not to kind of see what was happening, and but now 20 odd years later, everything is as clear as day.
Definitely, I know, and these things do happen, and this experience is the best teacher, and you went through it. Now you can actually recall that this is what happened. If you knew what you knew now, you probably would have been bitter, but it wouldn't have taken you 2 years. It probably would have taken you 2 days because of that human element that is in us. But this is how we need to create situations. Well, to deal with situations, I mean, because look, whatever happens, we are not in control. God knows the answers. God has the itinerary of what is going to happen and when. All we need to do is to follow the process. So, and thanks for that example. I know at that age, you are still young, you are naive, you think you know everything. You even you don't question God with reverence. You are questioning God with, because you're saying you know. So yeah, those are some of the experiences, and I guess it gives better lessons now. So moving on, if doubt or uncertainty is not dealt with, it could lead one to lose faith completely. But Habakkuk did not allow himself to be overcome by it. Instead, he dealt with it in a proper way, expressing ultimate belief in God's righteous character while also hoping for an answer to settle his questions. Because what happens is when we ask questions, the only thing that makes sense is to get answers. Now, but one thing we need to then understand is the answers can be yay or nay. And whatever happens there, we need to understand as God's loved people, as God loving people, that God has a reason. So we've got about 5 minutes left. I don't know about you. Like Habakkuk, I do not see anything wrong to sincerely seek answers to questions you have about God and his characteristics and whatever is happening. But now the most important thing is then to know where to search the answers. And scripture has all these answers. The challenge or the problem that we sit with is what Proverbs 16 verse 2 tells us. All the ways of men are clean in his own sight, but God weighs the motives. God weighs our motives. If I give you this, what you're asking for, what are you going to do with it? Proverbs 21 verse 2. Every man's ways is right in his own eyes, but God weighs his heart, and his heart obviously being the mind. So again, from the thoughts that you might have and the questions that you might have, we are always right. And whatever answers you have from what I was saying or from what the other brethren made comments on, you need to know that everything is summed up in 1 Corinthians 16, verse 14. Let all that you do be done in love. So I will open it for comments if there are any. We've got a few minutes, but we can stretch it to whatever time we want.